What's your view on what's going on the border?
The number of people crossing illegally into America this past year has been staggering. 10,000 a day last week.
I'll move quickly past the things that are fairly obvious to everyone. So that the border is an unmitigated disaster. I don't think I need to tell anyone that. It is out of control. We don't have any operational control over the border, as I think is claimed by the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, and the president. And why do we say that? Because look, anytime you have tens of thousands of people every month, hundreds of thousands of people every month, cutting in line, crossing the border, most of them being, we say catch and release, but it's more like a welcome and give airfare to. That's a little bit more accurate of a description of what's going on. And so what does that create? It creates a pull. It creates a huge magnet for more and more and more. And now you've got this sort of professionalized trafficking system where people from really anywhere in the world are now being solicited or marketed to by trafficking organizations. That's why you see like these occasional huge spikes from a certain country. It's because there's a trafficking organization that has developed basically a trafficking line from that country. And so that explains that. A lot of people are like, what's going on? It's all about the traffickers, which are, of course, all connected to the cartels in Mexico. The cartels have final say over everything, and they battle and fight pretty viciously over territory along the border because that's very valuable territory. They call them plazas. And because that's the final endpoint. Like, you got to pay the fee. It's just an unmitigated disaster, and it's just frustrating because it's kind of easy to fix, really. The left, liberals in general, wonder why they allow this to happen. And the easy answer is this: there might be some cynical desire to gain more voters, although I'm not sure anyone really thinks that'll happen for them. I tell you how it's affected Texas. I mean, and of course in practically bad ways, but politically it's made it more red. Those southern counties in Texas were always for 100 years deep blue Democrat districts and are now turning red. It's affected Texas that way. So I don't think the politics work out well for Democrats at all, but they're stuck in this weird place because they have very powerful outside groups, just like we have really powerful outside groups. That's why it's hard to make a deal. And they have that. And then they also, I just think, naturally don't have this kind of moral subset where it's important to protect your in-group. I'm not just making this up. I'm getting this from some really interesting books on moral psychology and a lot of survey data that's been done on how liberals and conservatives think. And they just don't value this sort of protection and loyalty of your group as the same as conservatives do. And, taking to the extremes, that can mean a few things. Taking to the extremes on the left, that means open borders. Everyone come in. Everything's fine. Everyone come into my house. Because I am super compassionate, because they value compassion above anything else. On the right, if you take it to the extreme, it's like hyper xenophobia. Okay. And obviously most on the right aren't that way, just to be clear. But we're probably, I think conservatives are generally more of the middle ground here, where it's like, we want immigrants, but we just want it reasonably done in a manageable process and manageable numbers, but doesn't upend our society too much. We should have some kind of merit-based system. Like I always point out, I'm like, how is it compassionate to just let somebody, they're like, well, we're letting him in legally now because we have the CBP One app. So 1,500 people a day can just show up at the border, fill out the app, and be like in. I'm like, well, they're still cutting the line. I still have friends in Colombia who are educated, own multiple businesses, and can't get a visa to come do business in the U.S. I went to high school in Bogota, Colombia, so I know a little bit about Latin American culture. I know a little bit about immigration and immigrants, legal immigrants, and how much it makes them angry that everybody's just walking in front of them, and we're just letting it happen.
We have some positive updates on the Alta Nevada deal, and we're here to talk to Charlie about them.
So super excited. We wrapped up the due diligence phase, which is kind of where you dig in and find everything that you need to find, the skeletons, and there's none. This is an opportunity to buy something that groups like us don't normally get to buy. This is usually swallowed up by the big, huge, sophisticated groups out of New York. And this is an opportunity that you don't have to be in a REIT. You get to see exactly the deal you want, but you're buying a REIT quality asset. It's just, again, I'm crazy excited about this.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be buying this deal below market. Rates have gone down. Our loan to values in the 50s. Yeah. We're going to put a lot of equity down, which means there's a fair amount of cash flow with that. Plus, there's a nice value add component down the road, because if we ever want to lever this up, we can do a cash out refi. Anybody who's interested, go to MC Companies/new deal. Take a look at it, and we're going to close it in a month. So I hope to see you in the deal.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think it's interesting. I have a lot of property in Texas. We have 1,000 units in Katy. I know you're from there. but also in every major city in Texas. And then what we're starting to see is crime creep up, and we're starting to see occupancy problems, for people like in New York. There's no way that New York should have high occupancy based on the way it's being run. And same thing with Portland, same thing with Seattle. And so as we start to take a look at these immigration, a lot of people don't think of the ripple effect, right? The ripple effect means high crime, lower wages. It means that people that are there are having a tougher time getting an apartment or even a home. And so, the ripple effect seems to be, we're just now starting to see the first few innings of all that, all those people coming through the border, right?
Yeah, and those effects are going to disproportionately affect lower income folks. They're not going to affect you, and because you're not competing for those kind of apartments, for those kind of jobs. So, this is like Bernie Sanders was very anti-immigration, illegal immigration, and illegal immigration at a certain point, because there is a wing of that party that does understand that aspect of immigration, that it does depress wages and opportunities for our lower income. Now, there's and that's a really complicated discussion. I mean, because I still talk to business owners all the time they're all conservative. They're also just practical people trying to run a business. And they're like, look, I tried to hire my nephew to do roofing work. I tried to give them opportunity. I've tried to hire Americans to do this work. They just won't do it. And then if they do it, they do it about a tenth as well as the immigrant that's coming in. So I'm sympathetic to that reality as well. Yep. And it is a reality, especially when it comes to this kind of hard labor and skill sets and working in the kitchen and just all of those things. Proper work visas, proper vetting being done. Even Trump is like, hey, green cards should be given to people who graduate university from here. And it's like, that's not a crazy thought to have, right? Now, if I said that, if more normal Republicans say that, they're rhinos and be exculpated from the party, but Trump can say whatever he wants. There is a good argument to be made for like, why are we educating them here? Why were, and then just sending them back. And then a lot of this has happened plenty of times. I mean, then they start some amazing business somewhere else. Why Taiwan is like the semiconductor capital of the world? It's because the guy from Texas Instruments didn't get a promotion. Okay. And then he went to Taiwan, and there's a whole backstory to that. So that could have been Texas, but it's amazing, like what small things change the course of history.
I tell you, when I was doing some research on the things that you're tackling right now, there might not be any job that I think could be more dangerous than the head of the Mexican drug cartel task force. So that's something that you're working on right now. Can you discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, I thought it'd be more dangerous. I'm a little disappointed in their lack of threats and interest, but I don't know. Maybe they're just really good at hiding it. But it's kind of that's an important point to make, because it is sort of part of the lesson. And the big lesson here is the last thing in the world they want is to hurt an American. I'm probably the safest person in the world when it comes to this, because the last thing in the world they'd want is to draw the ire of the American military in a very serious way. And you want people to remember a couple things. One, last year there was that horrible killing of 4 Americans went across the border to Matamoros. And they were crossing the border to get like cheaper prescription medicine. And they were Black Americans. And so they were mistaken for Haitian drug runners, right? So they're mistaken for basically, the cartel competition. Some of them were killed, kidnapped. It was a whole thing. What did the cartels do? They captured their own guys, laid them out on the street and said, come take them. We're sorry. Like, we're so sorry. We didn't mean to do this. And that was telling, because the last thing they want is to actually start a battle that they know they can't win. Now, look, in my opinion, they've already started the battle, which is one of our main points here. I'm like, we have to work with the Mexican military the same way we've worked with the Colombian military, the Iraqi military, the Afghani military. Afghanistan's not a super great example right now, but it failed because why? Because we stopped working with them. We do this all over the world. This isn't anything new. Mexico has an insurgency, just like Colombia has an insurgency. Had and still has remnants of it. It's doing a lot better because of our help. Iraq, ISIS, Al Qaeda, right? It's all this is all part of the same. We actually have a ton of experience doing this, and we need to help Mexico do it. But the biggest problem here is Mexico and their government. AMLO has been probably the worst possible partner you can imagine in all this. I think their new president, it can't get much worse. It's hard to say how she'll be, but I think we've got some good reasons to be optimistic on who we'd actually be working with down there and what kind of additional options they might be warmed up to. In the end, what you need to do is deter these cartels, especially deter them from doing fentanyl. That's the short-term goal. Short-term goal is stopping fentanyl. Long-term goal is dismantling them, and Mexico becomes a safe, secure, prominent, and prosperous country. Right? That's our end goal, but that's years and years and years away after a whole generation of a culture of corruption has finally been eradicated. But in the near term, we can deter the cartels from producing fentanyl. We've seen evidence of that when the Mexicans did some pretty high-profile, big gun battle raids against some of the leaders of the Los Chapitos. And what did they do? They announced publicly they were no longer doing fentanyl because it drew too much pressure. And they meant it. Now, they kind of meant it. I mean, they meant it in their area. They still figure out how to produce it and get it in. Don't get me wrong. They're not angels. But they are PR people. They are businessmen. And they would publish pictures of the executions they did on guys who were producing fentanyl without their permission. So pressure actually works. Military action actually works. And you just need more of it. And the Mexicans have to ask more for our help. That's what it comes down to.
I can't thank you enough, Dan. Let's have some fun at Limitless at the end of August this year. And you guys enjoy your day. So I've owned over 15,000 apartment units worth over $3 billion. And in that video, I've shown some invaluable lessons about real estate and the hard truths about the industry. I highly recommend you watch that here.